My name is Bonnie Fong. I'm the one who's been sending out emails and organizing these boot camps. So I want to thank you guys for coming. Today is the first day of a 2-day writing and publishing skills boot camp, and it's from 10 to 4, as you see on the agenda. I apologize, I changed the dates on the top, but the bottom I forgot to change it, so it's not January, it just make it May. So that's a tentative agenda. Paula is the one who will be the instructor today, and tomorrow you'll have a different instructor, Simone, and they'll cover different things. It is a much smaller group than we anticipated, so you'll get a lot of individualized attention. There are some handouts in the back. There's one that Paula put together. There's one that's the agenda. There's one that's released for video recording and or photography. If you could please complete this and give it back to me. I'll be wandering in and out throughout the day, but I'll need these from you guys. As mentioned in, if you don't have one, I'll just give you this one. As mentioned in like the sign up for and everything, we are recording these because I'm not quite sure what happened this time around, but in January, there were a lot of people who were on the wait list and couldn't get into this boot camp, so we wanted to make sure that they had access to the content, so we recorded it. And Mark Papiani over there is setting it up right now. Hoping he's not recording, but...
Well, I record everything.
Everything
all the time.
So hopefully you guys are all able to sign off on that, and I'll collect those from you. The other thing that was back there was a sign-in sheet. We will be getting you certificates. I'm not sure if they'll be ready by the end of tomorrow, but if not, they'll be at the grad school, and they'll like send an email to let you know when they're ready. Oh, and I did say in the email that there's going to be sandwiches both days, but lunch today I believe is going to be pizza. Sorry for the change. I hope that's all right. I did share with the folks who ordered lunch the dietary restrictions, if you guys mentioned any. So hopefully that'll be all right with you. So as I mentioned, I'll be in and out. Mark will also be kind of in and out as he records. I'm just going to give the floor to Paul. Thanks.
Okay, great, thank you. So, my name is Paula Neves. I'm from the writing program here at Rutgers Newark. I've been teaching there for quite a few years now. I do not have a PhD. I have 2 master's degrees, so my workshops tend to be more like master's focused. So for some of you working in doctoral programs or at a more advanced level, some of this might seem repetitive. And because we get so many students from so many different backgrounds, it's kind of hard to cover, you know, to individualize it. But if you, did you all bring writing samples? Yes.
I brought.
Okay, so so that might help. You know, at certain points in the workshop today, we'll likely have an opportunity to take a look at what you're working on specifically. But because of the nature of these programs trying to cater to a bunch of different things at the same time, it's going to be more of an overview of things than maybe specific things. So I know that Mu Ying, you were looking at literature review, right? Yeah. Some of the issues related to literature review might be issues of structure, for instance. Am I guessing correctly there?
Actually, I just write something down on that table, but actually I'm more interested in how to write like contribution, like how to make a proposal. That's more interesting.
Okay. I mean, a lot of that has to do with structure, and so even if you're looking at something specific like a literature review, a lot of this will carry over. So whether we're looking at that, or whether we're looking at an abstract, or a proposal, or a book review, it all boils down to structure, right? And a very common issue that graduate students, because you know many of them have been in the workforce and they go back to school, or you know they've had certain issues with structure all along. So for instance, one of the common issues I encounter is, you know, lots of summary. You're doing a lot of reading, and when you're writing about this, you're just regurgitating the information instead of giving it structure. So structure is going to be the name of the game for this workshop, okay? That's very important. So with that in mind, I'm going to just give an overview of certain things, but let me just get a sense of so Mu Ying, you're concerned with literature review, and how about the rest of you? What kinds of things are you struggling with right now?
Go ahead.
I just wanted to learn more about like the research, the data gathering process, how to be more organized. best use of the research that I do find and incorporate that in a cohesive manner.
Okay, and how about the rest of you?
My problem basically is not just regurgitating the information that I've researched, but trying to put my own voice into the writing.
Mhm. Right, okay, that's pretty common, and how about you?
Combination of the two.
Yeah, okay. So that's why we usually start out with this critical reading strategies in the research notebook. I think at this point, maybe the most important part of this will be the research notebook part of this. Is anybody here having trouble with just the reading load? That didn't come up as an issue, but in terms of just...
What I've noticed, I've been reading, looking at web articles, videos, and it's teaching you how to pace yourself and teaching you the appropriate, the expected amount of material one should be able to cover as a graduate. And they're giving you different techniques. That I can develop the technique that I'm doing, but I'm open to any suggestions on your part.
Yeah, my suggestions will probably be supplements to what you're already reading. I'm sure your videos have told you that, for instance, you can't read every single word of every single thing. You really have to skim. Right. So, I mean, this is just a review. We'll just start out with a quick review and then get into more of the research notebook part. So, obviously, you know, a lot of this is time management. Yes?
Is that a handout too?
No, it's not a handout because just to put them all together would have been just, you know, a tremendous amount of
I thought we
paper.
could have one of those too, or we could get an email of that also.
Well, I think what's going to happen is I'm going to send a copy to Bonnie, and I believe that she will upload it on the library site somewhere.
Okay.
But, you know, if you want a copy of this, you can also email me directly. My email is at the top.
Okay.
It's on, and it is on the handouts that you are getting. So, so this is like, you know, pretty commonsensical, all these tips about skimming and reading summaries, beginnings and ends, et cetera. I think the most significant aspect of this, and it's something that's already come up, is how do you integrate what you're reading with your writing projects, right? And for that, it's absolutely essential that you take notes. Not just take notes in terms of marginalia or highlighting, you actually have to start organizing your research as you're reading. Do any of you keep a research notebook?
I used to, well, when I research now, according to the quantity of pages that the professor requires of me, I will use this book. I will flesh out what I've researched to get a generality of what the professor is requesting. And then after I've acquired that, then I'll jot down some of the highlighting points where I know I want to actually add into the paper.
How about the rest of you? Do the rest of you keep any kind of research notebook? And how do you find that in terms of when, you know, the bridge between reading and then writing, what do you find happens because of that, like, kind of gap?
Actually, for me, before my qualifying exam, yes, I have a reading notebook. I make summary of all the papers because I need to prepare for the exam. But after the exam, when I really do my own research, I didn't take any notes. And I found it's really hard to record all the materials I have read when I write.
Right. So, I mean, that's, I mean, doing that, taking notes and keeping some kind of notebook, not just in terms of organizing what you're reading, and keep this in mind too. I tend to instruct by jumping around. That's just my style. Patterns. Keep this in mind, patterns. So I said the words, there's certain keywords that come out of my presentation. Structure. So you have to be aware of structure of any text that you're dealing with, right? Because that will also help you eventually start to recognize structural issues in your own writing. Structure and patterns. Patterns are part of structure, okay? So, I'm sorry, Mu Ying, just repeat what you just said.
Okay. When I listen to some courses and I read some papers required by the courses, yes, I do summaries.
Right.
But after that, when I do my own research, I read all the papers. I didn't take any notes, so.
Okay, so retention. It's very important for retention to keep some kind of some kind of record of this. So I think that's probably the most important for our purposes here. So let's just jump down to, if you don't keep a notebook or you used to, I would say get back in the habit of doing that. It's going to save you time and aggravation later on. Because like Mu Ying said, if you're doing all this reading and you're not really, recording certain things that stand out to you, and the reason why I said patterns before is because you're also in the field you're in because you have certain interests, right? You're not in this field just so you can learn all this information and then regurgitate it. You're actually in the field to do something with it, so you were driven there by your own particular interests. So when you're doing this research, the research notebook also helps you because it will help you keep track of patterns of things that you're interested in that you can later develop into your own projects, whether it's for a PhD program or some kind of proposal or other project in a professional setting, okay? So it's very important that you keep track of this information. We're in a digital age, so it probably makes the most sense at this point if you keep that research notebook in some kind of digital form, although that won't necessarily work for everybody at the beginning. I mean, some people are visual, for instance, and they're old school, and they'll still like do index cards, and maybe they'll, I've had students who, they take notes, and if they're in the middle of a project, they'll take notes and they'll actually put it up on the board to kind of see the pattern of the thing that they're working on. That will help them with structure. You have to know yourself and know what works best for you, but I am a big fan of finding some kind of digital method for keeping a notebook. Now, one of the programs that's been touted for a while now for keeping your notes organized is this program called Scrivener. Okay, so I don't use it myself because at this point I'm doing more grading of papers than I am my own writing. And at this point I have a master's in English and an MFA in creative writing. So at this point I'm actually doing more creative writing. So I'm not doing the kind of academic writing that you guys are doing, but I have. And I think when I was doing that, these resources weren't as available to me, but they're now available to you. So let's check this out.
Scrivener, you said?
Yeah, Scrivener. Let's just go.
The other one with the elephant?
There's a bunch of them,
Yeah.
and there's. Here we go. This. Before you decide what method you want to use, I would check out, different blogs or just different write-ups on these things to make a decision about what's going to work best for you. So this person is just talking about how this software has helped her organize her writing. So I would definitely recommend, one of the reasons why I also didn't give you guys a handout for this was because I want you to be taking notes while I'm doing my, because it's part of this putting what I'm telling you into action. So I want you to actually be keeping a research notebook while I'm talking to you because I want to get a sense of what your organizational method is. So Scrivener, I would check out Scrivener, and I would also Google comparisons between the different kinds of programs like this to keep a research notebook or to keep academic writing organized. Okay. There was one site here that listed the pros and cons of this. Okay, so using Scrivener for writing scientific papers.
So are these software?
They are software. Now, the advantage of this, of your being graduate students, is that you will often get a free trial or a deep discount. You might be able to get it through Rutgers, either for free or with a deep discount. But I would definitely investigate something like this. I've heard people in the writing program who use this. They really like this program. So. There are others though, and I know that there was one, I think it's on the handout, that was sort of comparing the two. Oh, not the two, but was comparing Scrivener to other. Is it in here? No, it's not in here. But basically, it's pretty. A lot of this is very commonsensical. Like I'm just going to give you the lead basically, and then I want you to do a little bit of research. So, because I don't want to be standing up here the whole time, just like lecturing you and talking to you about this, do you guys have, all of you have computer access right now? 2 of you
I
do.
left my,
2 of you do, yes?
Three of us.
3 of us do. Okay, so Forrest, I
I
want
left
you,
my tablet home, yeah.
okay, so I want you to pair up with somebody, or, yeah.
I think you can borrow one.
Yeah, I believe you can borrow one down the library. You give me
Where?
your ID.
We're downstairs?
Yeah, by the, if you were entering from that side, it's on the right, to the right of the security guard. You know where you get your.
Where does, the desk where you take the books out?
Yeah,
Okay.
leave there, if not, they'll show you where to go.
Okay.
But you know what, that might take some time right now.
Yeah.
Maybe that's better to wait till we get a break here. For now, just pair up with someone. And so this is what I want you to do. You're gonna have a little mini research exercise in software for doing, or, you know, organizing your academic writing. So I want you to, you can work individually, you can work in groups, but I want you, just the things that I told you about. I mentioned Scrivener, but there are other programs. So I want you to do a little research right now and take notes on what you find. Okay, so it's not going to be just a matter of, oh, this is what I found, let me show you, right? Because this is a writing workshop. So I want you to do a little research now. And listen, when you get these graduate assignments, they're not going to like hold your hand. Some of them are pretty, you know, open-ended or vague. Right? I mean, I've had students come in to me and say, I'm not quite sure what the instructor wants from this, and it's hard to get their attention to know what they want specifically. Like, it could just be write a book review, and or whatever it is, and you're kind of expected to know what that is. So you're smart people. The assignment is, I gave you one of them, Scrivener. Now your assignment is to do research on, you know, Scrivener and some other of these organizing software, and I want you to just write up something about which one you find based on your research. It's going to be a very limited research, very short, okay? I want you to make me a recommendation, okay? So even things like recommendations, they have structure to it. You will find as we go throughout the day that all of these things have a very similar structure. The other thing I want you to keep in mind, beginning, middle, and end. And what goes in those beginning, middles, and ends, okay? Beginning is the introduction, the middle is the real meat, and the end is the, you know, wrapping up conclusion, the therefore part, okay? So I'm gonna give you up to 20 minutes, but I might call time before then, okay? So we're gonna be doing these kind of things, this kind of work throughout the day today, okay? Is everybody clear on what I've asked for? Great. So you're going to be basically doing a report on what you find and giving your recommendations, not just to me, to the class too. Okay, ding, ding, ding. So don't worry if you're not finished, that's okay. Because actually when we're researching, we're never finished, are we? Because we never feel like we're experts enough. There's always more information, and that's a problem. And I'll talk about that more a little bit later, but that's often a problem that can transfer into a writer's block. So if you're not finished, that's great. So all of you were taking notes on this, and I noticed that all of you have very distinctive styles in taking notes. Perfect, right? And I was taking notes on what I was observing in relation to you and in relation to what I was going to talk about next. And so that's my way of taking notes, right? Kind of all over the place. And so each of you have very different styles. So Forrest, you tend to write in, with lines, like in blocks, like paragraphs. You're like scattered. It's like more of a visual thing. It's kind of all over the place. I'm probably a combination, right? Because it's like kind of scattershot, but also there's like full sentences. You're definitely a visual person, it looks like to me, right? And you write in like paragraph form, right from the, or like in just like, you go right to the writing, okay? So it's very important that you're aware of your style, because actually, I didn't have you just do this exercise to like take up time. Oh yeah, I think this is great, I'm gonna give them stuff to do. None of you, it seems, use any programs to do a research notebook, right? So,
I used Evernote.
you do, okay, well, then it's fine, but for the rest of you, you really don't, right? So, this will be a useful, so I got you into researching what's out there so far. You're gonna present to the class. Now, this is very important too. In this class, I'm not gonna just be up here talking, you're actually gonna be doing some writing, implementing some of these ideas, and then presenting to the class, because one of the key factors, I mean, at least this was my experience in grad school, it seems to be what a lot of my students experience, is that you're kind of on your own, right? When you're an undergrad, maybe you have a little bit more hand-holding or a little bit more guidance, but in grad school, you're pretty much on your own. So you have to rely a lot on your networks, your colleagues, your classmates, people in your program, but other people outside of the program. So we're gonna treat that today as you relying on colleagues. So you're gonna listen to your colleagues' recommendations, and we're gonna also discuss your recommendations, and pay attention to that and your own style of note-taking, and hopefully out of this, you're gonna find maybe a package or a program that you're a little bit more interested in investigating to start taking these notes for your research notebook, okay? So, but first I want to start with the oral presentations on what your findings were, and then we're gonna move into the writing portion of this. This part was writing, but it was kind of pre-writing. So we did the pre-writing, oral presentation, and then we're gonna do a little bit more fuller writing. So, yes. So again, later in this class, we're going to do something called the conference panel, because some of you were interested in networking professionally and how to apply to conferences, et cetera. So we're kind of starting a little bit of that now by doing a presentation to your colleagues. So as you do, I'm sure in class, make sure that you're clear, that you're loud enough, okay, and that you're like engaging people. So go ahead.
The three tools that I researched were Scrivener, Scrabble, and Doc-Ear.
Okay, I'm sorry to interrupt. Now I want you also to be taking notes on which each of you are saying. Okay, see if it corresponds to the research you've encountered. If it's something that someone else has found that you didn't consider, I want you to actually, this is a very active class, right? So I want you to be taking notes on what your colleagues are saying. Sorry, I promised last time I interrupted you.
So the academic software allows the users the flexibility to write any order, and it provides the structural support necessary for effective writing. So with Scrivener, it's a content-driven tool that allows the user to organize many different file types like images, PDFs, web pages. And its primary objective is to help the writer through that first draft so that they get all their ideas down. And Scrabble is actually a complementary tool that can be integrated directly into Scrivener, and it allows you to brainstorm your ideas in a very unstructured way, and then allows the users to make the connection between those ideas. So those two tools are complementary. And then Doc-Ear is a tool specifically designed for academic literature management. It uses a single interface to organize all of your research. It also includes a literature suite that combines several tools into one, like document management, reference management, and brainstorming sessions, like what Scrabble is providing. And then a third feature is it makes recommendation for related literature that you may be interested in.
Okay, so then your three, just to reiterate, were Scrivener, Doc-Ear, and Scrabble.
Yes.
And Scrabble is complementary to Scrivener. So, yeah, go ahead.
She said Doc-Ear or?
Doc-Ear, D-O-C-E-A-R.
I put that.
That might be useful too if it's a certain software with an unusual name to actually spell it out for people. Can you explain from your research how Scrabble kind of complements Scrivener, or?
It allows you to just directly drag and drop whatever the ideas you brainstorm right into Scrivener.
Okay, so they're two separate programs, but they're complementary. So
Yes,
if you're working in one,
yeah, it's integrated, so you can just move between them easily.
so it's kind of like the programs in the Office suite. You can like move between them. Okay, okay. Okay, so that's very good basic information. Now, what I want you guys to start thinking about, I want you, as each person is presenting, also pay attention to their presentation style, not in terms of their personality, but in terms of the way they're conveying the information, the kind of information they're conveying. So, and I'm sorry, you're the guinea pig. The first person always is. From what I heard you present, you just gave the basics. Gave the basics. Now this is for all of you, and this is not something I necessarily want you to do in this phase, but I want you to pay attention to whether the person presenting or whether when you're presenting you're giving the basics or you're starting to make a recommendation. Okay? So what I want you to keep in mind for yourself is, of these 3 programs that you research, which one would be most useful for either you or, let's keep it to ourselves, about ourselves, because it's more abstract to think about how it would. In any case, when you're making a recommendation, you're recommending it to other people. So I modify that a little bit. You're making a recommendation to other people, but it's really based on the things that you found most useful for yourself, right? So anything like that is always an extension of yourself and your interests. That's why at the beginning of the class I said this thing about patterns. What are your own interests? Note-taking will allow you to keep track of what is most interesting to you. So the next phase of this will be, you're going to make a recommendation for which one of those programs is most useful. Okay, now all of you are going to do this. Okay, this was just the beginning. This was just the note-taking part of it. But in order to transfer this into writing we actually do, and that you do in your programs, this pretty much follows the pattern and the structure, right? You do the research, you do the reading, you gather information. The point of gathering information is to then write about it and present it, but you're not presenting it just to convey information. Sometimes you are.
You're taking
right?
a position.
Sometimes you are. Yeah, but you're in graduate school, and even when you were in undergrad, I'm sure had many courses where you were asked to analyze and make an argument and it's all the same thing. You're taking a position, okay? Of course, in certain situations, you will be asked just to convey information. But I would say in most of my experience, in different kinds of settings, what's really called for is for you to take some kind of position, okay? So keep that in mind for our next phase. So Garfield, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I analyzed 4. Those kind of different. Scrivener, Evernote, OneNote, and Google Keep. Of the oldest is OneNote, then the youngest is Google Keep. Between Scrivener and Evernote, Scrivener is older. Now, the situation goes that Scrivener is not accessible on all platforms. Scrivener doesn't allow Android, and it's not syncable with other apps, and it's having problems with the iOS operating system. Contrarily, Evernote operates on all platforms,
Okay.
Android, BlackBerry, and iPhone operating systems. If you want to write books, Scrivener is the one. It doesn't call itself note-taking, it calls itself docs. Scrivener is for an individual who actually has many templates in front of them and basically wants to deliberate and because it has a template for books that one is just basically putting your information. It's shaped up like a book. Now with Evernote is more like a Dropbox. Evernote has web clipping. You can see something on the web while you're researching and just snatch it and put it in the notebook. You can also do that with audio. So if there's something that you like that you see on the web regarding audio, you can snatch it as well and put it in. You can record your voice speaking and put it in the actual notebook. This is Evernote.
Okay.
Now with the Evernote note, you can also stack it to say that you're building a library. And you can't do that with Scrivener. Evernote is for an individual who's going to brainstorm and get a lot of information quickly. Person who's on the go. You're not tethered to one operating system or to your laptop. It's on the fly. It's for the quickness. Now, with the OneNote doesn't really have that. It's not stackable. All of the versions all of these apps have a free version. They're limited in style, but the one that's free and gives you the most cost effective is Evernote again.
So it gives you the most bang for your buck.
The most bang for free.
Okay.
For free, you know. And the good part about Evernote is that it allows access to third-party apps so they can put extensions on the Evernote.
So it works with all platforms and gives you access to third-party apps.
It gives you access to third-party apps on it that the others don't. The others are just exclusive, you can't get on. It's also, the notes are taggable. So you could always go back and find something. Ice cream, pick that up right away. Or you could tag it and say, and send it off to your friend. Have them access to the notes as well. The others can do that, but from what I see right here, also, OneNote is more expensive. It's actual when you're gonna pay for it, compared to the free, it's like around $70 compared to others, which is a lot cheaper.
So wait, the one you had been talking about before was Evernote, and
Right.
now you're talking about OneNote.
Microsoft.
The one that's free or has a free trial?
All of them are free.
Okay.
All of them are free.
Have a free trial?
Yeah, the free,
Yeah.
well, not so much trial, but it's a free version that you can run with.
I see, okay.
It has limited capabilities, but the free one that has the most capabilities is Evernote.
Okay.
Yeah, is Evernote. And as a student, bang for my buck, I'm trying to keep that money for lunch
Sure.
or gas or something, so I'm gonna go with Evernote.
So you did Evernote, Scrivener, OneNote, what was the fourth one?
Google Keep, that's the new guy on the block. They're hoping that they develop it a little bit more as how Google has all these other platforms, you know, the
Self-driving
maps and all.
cars and writing.
Oh. Well,
Sorry.
I see Google, I mean, personally, I keep my eye on Google,
Yeah,
but I have for pragmatic purposes right now, I'm jumping into Evernote.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know, if I was a doctorate, well, they even recommend that if you're gonna use Scrivener, that you should snatch up everything you can with Evernote. And they show you
Are they compatible, Scrivener and
they're-
Evernote?
they say there is a way, but it's intricate and it's detailed and it's tedious. But if you
Okay.
follow step by step, it can be done, they say. And they recommend that once you it's like a tablet. You
Mhm.
go out and do what you want, take pictures and everything on your tablet, and then you go home, you go to your desktop,
Mm.
and you download
So it
everything. and go
interfaces
from
with the
there.
different devices too, very
Right.
seamlessly, okay. Now, I heard you say, they say, did you keep track of the sources that you got this information from?
Yes, I did.
Did any of you keep track of the sources that you got this information
My
from?
websites.
Okay, so keep that in mind, right? Now, when we're just taking notes, of course, we have shorthand methods of keeping track of that, but that, you need to figure out some shorthand to capture that, because that will be important later on when you're developing your works cited list or your bibliographies, et cetera. So that doesn't get lost, okay? So that'll be for phase 2 of this, yeah,
And the site that I use is a credible site. I use PC World,
okay.
and that is a credible site compared to
To-
it's a neutral site
to like
also compared to the
Wikipedia or
other one.
something, yeah.
Well, it's a neutral site
Yeah.
also compared, don't go off on Wikipedia. Wikipedia has some.
It has errors.
Well,
It still has errors.
it does have some references that you can check and say, oh, wow, that.
Yes, that's true.
I like rock Wikipedia.
But I still don't recommend mine. It's a great place to like
I
start
will-
out.
I will cite it, yeah.
It's a great place to start out, but I wouldn't cite it. It's
Right.
not, all right. That was great. Thank you. Okay, now again, both the two of you, pay attention to your styles. I'll get back to that when we're all done. Okay.
I compare the Scrivener with other 3 softwares.
Mhm.
The other 3 is YWriter, Ulysses,
Ulysses, okay.
and the last one is Storist. It's
Storist?
Storyist.
Okay, Storius,
Yes.
okay.
I compare them with several different aspects.
Mhm.
At first, if for your system,
Mhm.
if you use the Mac,
Mhm.
I will recommend you to use Scrivener or Storist. But if you use the Windows system, I really recommend you with the YWriter. And for the iPad, for the mobile system, it will be more good to use the Ulysses. And for the affordability, all of these have free trial, and for the screen winner, they will give you a license code if you pay for this software, and if you have a new device and you want to download your new one, you can use the license code to free download that because you have already paid for that.
Okay.
And for the
Basic
function,
free, okay.
yes,
Yeah.
and for the function size, the Scrivener is a very complexity software, so it provides a lot of functions, more than other three softwares. But the problem is that if you only need a single one to add some short pages, then it will be the Scrivener may be too large. But its advantages can be organized in three parts. At first, it is easy to export into several different formats, such kind of PDF, HTML, and eBuild. But if you want, and if you also use some kind of cloud storage, the Scrivener will provide the Dropbox to communicate different devices. And if you are a fiction writer or you have large files to editor, the Scrivener is very good because it saves different chapters into separate files.
I've seen that.
So if you make a short, very little change or few changes in your writing, it will be saved in a small part, other than save the whole file again.
Okay.
Yes, so it's very good for some, like you have large chapters, you have several different sceneries, and so you can make a little change.
So if you make a little change, then it's
Yes.
all organized, so you don't have to resave all those files again.
Yes.
It updates them all.
Yes.
So if you have a draft that uses that
Right,
sentence or that,
yes.
and you make the change in another draft, it will
Yeah,
update
right.
it.
Yes,
Oh,
it's very
okay.
easy, and
Yeah.
its advantages like that. It's very complexity, so it will have a clear forest tree and different branches.
Mhm.
So it's easier for you to locate what you want to
Okay,
memorize.
okay.
And it's another advantage is that it's very flexible to export it into other softwares. For example, the Scrivener is easy to change its file to storage.
Mhm.
But if you want to change this, if you want to input the file from storage to Scrivener, it will take a long time.
Okay.
So that is all I found. My recommendation is that if you use the Mac system and if you need to do large work on your writing, the Scrivener is very good. But if you use Windows, you can use a WireWriter. And if you only need a single, very short, a small software to make some easy editing, maybe the storage is the best choice.
So you're saying it's easy to move from Scrivener to Stories, but not the other way around?
Oh no, it's easy to move from storage to
Scrivener.
Scrivener, but not
Okay.
the others.
Gotcha.
Oh, I forgot to tell you that. You might like this. If you pay extra money, then
Yes.
OneNote translates your audio into text.
I already have that on.
Audio to text.
That's, which one was it?
OneNote, yeah.
OneNote.
OneNote. Audio to text.
So, no more typing that.
Yes,
I'm
so-
on the paper right now, okay, yeah.
So I can just say something and we will record it into
Right.
text.
Well, that could be very good for note taking too. You're
Yes.
taking notes verbally. When you're writing the paper, though, you still have to deal, but that's a time saver,
Right.
definitely. So, and that's OneNote,
Somebody for,
right?
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
we can do something.
instead of having to transcribe all that, you could just.
Great point, because your research notebook does not have to be a written notebook, it could be an audio notebook, right? But if it has a capability of then, transcribing into writing or into text, great feature, because you're gonna need to, we're not gonna escape writing for a while until the robots come and take my job, but, or AI comes and takes my job, but.
Grammarly puts on fire.
But anyway, so, but you still said that for you, the best bang for your buck would still be Evernote.
Evernote.
Okay. See, I'm learning a lot from this too, and I'm taking notes here as well. Okay, so,
Because it records audio too, you know, it just doesn't convert to text.
OneNote,
Evernote.
Evernote.
Best bang for buck,
Yeah.
yeah.
okay. The second one you would recommend would be, well, I'm getting ahead of myself.
Okay.
Just keep that under your hat. Okay, go ahead, Forrest.
Okay, I too have looked at Scrivener, Ulysses,
Mhm.
and Storyist. And Scrivener and Ulysses have much in common, but Ulysses is much more intuitive than Scrivener is. Scrivener has a steep learning curve, so it's difficult to get into. And yeah, and the formats, it limits the amount of formats that you can export your writing to.
You mean Scrivener does, limits?
Yes,
Yes,
yes, yes,
okay.
yes. Storyist is also, it's similar to Scrivener, but it's more focused on fiction than it is on nonfiction.
Okay.
Oh yeah, and the other thing that I've noticed, Scrivener gives you a 30-day free trial.
Mhm.
Ulysses costs $40. Y-Writer is free. And yeah, I've also noticed, yeah, that's it.
Y-Writer. Did you find out anything about Y-Writer?
Not too much. I couldn't
Okay.
get to read it too quickly.
Okay. So, oh, I just had a thought, it just went out of my head. Okay. So before I jump to the next point, I just want to hear you for like a minute or two talk about your note-taking style. I noticed something about your note-taking style, but what do you notice about your note-taking style? Why don't we start this way since we started?
Well, yeah, I do tend to write out in complete sentences and paragraphs, although sometimes I do outlines. That's pretty much my note-taking style.
Okay.
I taking still, for this comparison text, I maybe would like to make some tables.
Mhm.
So I have columns and we can compare them clearly with the tables.
So you're also a visual person, because you like
Yeah,
looking
yeah.
at figures or tables, so you can like see the information.
Yes.
And you're definitely a visual person. What do you notice about yourself?
Well,
What works for you?
I learned two ways. I need to touch, and I need to see.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can hear and things of that nature, but when I'm hearing, I'm visualizing what the person is saying. And I pretty much learned that way. And I realized even though with the typing, I retain a lot more when I write. I was trying to get away from it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's why when I bought a touchscreen computer. Touchscreen is a lot faster for me to get around and what I want to do, you know. But I learned visual and
Touch and see,
Yeah.
touch and see. Okay, how about you?
So I also tend to write out
Mhm.
complete sentences, and I have tried to move to typing rather than writing out notes because it just takes too long to write the notes. And, I try to get all like the information and write it out in a cohesive manner, and then go back and see how I try to make the comparison. If I need to, create a table or something, then use what I have written down to build a table.
Okay, now that's very important. Know your style and what works for you, but know that not everybody's style is the same as yours. And this is very important when you're writing something to an audience, right? And what do I mean by that? The next thing you're going to write is a recommendation. So you have to be aware that at some point in this recommendation, you should have some kind of acknowledgement of that by saying, this is recommended for people who are this kind of learner, or this kind of note taker, right? If you're this kind of person, you might benefit more from this. Okay, so this is important because recommendations are good because if you're aware of that, they start to get us out of the bubble of us and what's it up here, and assume that everybody else is going to relate the same way, and bring your audience in more of a varied audience. Okay, so depending on what I'm just gonna call them text. Depending on what kind of text or work you're writing, you might need to be aware of different kinds of audiences. You could be writing to an audience of your peers, fellow experts. So, you know, using things like jargon will be very appropriate. Or you might be writing to a general audience. So we're gonna start in this class, just for the purposes of learning things like structure, we're gonna assume that you're writing to a general audience. The next thing you're gonna do is, based on your note-taking, you're gonna make a recommendation. Now, this is a written recommendation for which program you would recommend, okay? But I want you to keep in mind that you're making that recommendation because it's good for this certain kind of learner or this certain kind of note-taker. You want to be cognizant of these are good for other things, right? So you will be briefly reviewing or describing the features of these things, right? But ultimately, you're going to come out in favor of one because of this, okay? You all get what I'm saying? Now,
Okay, so, okay.
yeah.
You're saying we'll make mention of the other one as in contrast.
Yeah,
Okay.
as a contrast, because that's what you do. Well, when you're doing academic writing, let's say you're doing a book review, right? Your instructor's not going to ask you to do a book review just for the sake of doing a book review. They're seeing if you're contributing to the field of knowledge, right? Keep this is another phrase. I said structure. Are you contributing to the field of knowledge? Your field of knowledge. To contribute to the field of knowledge, that information has to be useful. The purpose of most, I would say, or probably all academic writing is to convey useful information, okay? Now, useful information sometimes is informative, but really people turn to other experts to, you know, get a recommendation in some form, right? You know, when you're searching for articles that will be most helpful for your big project, whatever it is, you're reading abstracts.
Right.
And what do abstracts tell you?
Give you a synopsis, a summary of the entire paper.
They give you useful information,
Yeah.
but they also tend to tell you what the thing is about and why it's important, why you should bother. That's useful information, okay? It's not all about just, you know, this was about melanoma research. You know, well, so what? You know, what was the methodology? What was the main finding? And usually that's contained in just a little abstract, okay? There's structure in an abstract. We're going to touch on abstracts and book reviews in a little while, but you know, we're just starting out here with this recommendation. So, I almost called you Ulysses. I underlined something in your note taking.
Right.
What did I underline?
Similar, I think you said similar to Scrivener? Yeah, also similar to Scrivener.
Also similar to Scrivener, and the reason why I underlined that was why. Now, at the heart of any recommendation is the why. Why should you bother with this? So you don't want to just do the what this is about, but why it's important. That's where your credibility and your authority come in, right? So that's what moves something from just being, you know, summary of the literature, and this is how it ties into literature review. You don't want to just be conveying information about things that you've read. You know, why are they important? Why are they important to your project? Is it part of your dissertation? So it all goes back to the main question or the main questions you're answering, okay? So there's always the why in there. The why and the how, why question mark, how question mark, they're very tied together. That's the analysis part, okay? So, blank paper. We also have, I put this up here, but you don't have to keep this up here. You can take it, because Mark is going to be able to move the camera around. You can take this and put it on the table and just, you know, go all crazy with the visual stuff if you need. But the next thing we're going to do is move from this note-taking and preliminary writing to an actual recommendation. Now, I'm going to give you certain limits. Just get this out of the way.
We'll use the line paper for the recommendation?
You can use whatever you want.
All right.
I mean, you can type it, you can use the line paper. I mean, like I said, if you're writing this down, but you don't have a computer, but if you're doing this in a real life situation, I would recommend you put it in some kind of electronic format, just because it's easier.
I usually do, but
my
But
tablet
the
started
beauty of
acting
this
up.
is that this is hopefully useful, so you could always scan it too,
Yeah.
and then convert it into some kind of text file,
Pocket
so.
type.
Okay, so, oh, and just before we go to this next phase,
Creating a notebook now. Okay, that's fair enough. Research and writing workshop.
okay, so part of the handout, but you guys just blew away what was on this handout. It's not on the handout you have, but on mine. We have a software resource here at the library of RefWorks. I don't know if any of you have used RefWorks. I haven't, I don't, you know, I know that it's recommended, and here's some of the main points. This is right from the library website. So since this is, you know, partly a library boot camp, I'm plugging the thing that's on the library site. But this might be also something that you want to check out. And here are just some of the points associated with it. And since you're Rutgers students, you can get an account on RefWorks. I've heard that it's very good for organizing bibliographies and citations. So, and did any of you guys, here's Scrivener, which you did a lot of research on, but did any of you come across Zotero, and you guys did EndNote and Scrivener, that came up, but did anybody come across Zotero? No, okay, so that might be something also to, you know, keep under your hat. Okay, so, moving right along, structure, right? Structure is the name of the game, I said that at the beginning. And even though these different forms of writing have different purposes, they're all related in terms of structure and what is contained in the structure. Again, beginning, middle, and end, right? So, this is a section from a class I teach on writing research topic proposals and annotated bibliographies. You're not doing that right now, you're doing just a recommendation. But I wanted to use as an example so that you could get a sense of why structure and why, and also why this why is so important, okay? So, you don't have to know anything about this field, this, you know, where this is from. I think that you can get a sense of something just by reading it. So these are from student proposals about for a research paper they're going to do. Okay, so let's just let's look at I don't want to go through all of them right now, but let's just look at the first one. Let's just read through the first one. So it's this one. So this is a different one, so ignore this one, we're just looking at that one. Okay, you done? Yeah? Okay. So again, what I said before, the purpose of an academic paper is to convey useful information. So each section should be conveying some kind of useful information. So evaluate this for me. Is it conveying useful information? Is it conveying enough useful information, etc.? This is a proposal for a research paper. So this person is going to write on this topic. Give me some sense of what you feel about this proposal. Yeah.
My idea is that the title of this is Effects of Depression,
Mm-hmm.
but the research question or the other interesting questions there is about the antecedents of depression.
Mm-hmm.
So I was wondering if the title matches with the contents here.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What else? What else do you notice about this?
I mean, he's already concluded.
It's, say that again?
The individual's already concluded what the research is, as if he's already, I mean,
Where does he conclude that?
well, I mean, the effects of depression, that's not like, well, we're gonna research to see if he's depressed. You're saying these are effects of the depression.
Mm-hmm.
The topic I choose to write about is how juniors feel well, feels lonely and depressed.
Mhm.
This topic interests me because Junior feels that he is alone and no one cares about him.
Mhm.
So, I mean, it's a given. I mean, the guy's depressed. I could.
Right, it's an obvious statement,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Again, is it conveying useful information, or is it conveying something obvious, right? What else about this?
I could argue, what do you mean you could? You're supposed to, you're straddling the fence. You're supposed to.
Right.
Yeah.
And to be fair, though, this is before they really got into their research, so this is kind of like a working idea. But even in a working idea, there's certain things that you can already notice and be aware of. Like, for instance, these were for research papers that were like 10 pages max, okay? Can you cover the effects of depression in 10 pages?
It could be short and sweet, depends on who you're talking to. If you're talking to a layman, if you're talking to someone with an understanding so that you can say certain things, you might put a footnote that they understand, oh, they know about Freud, they know about Jung, you know what I mean? Well, yeah, but if you're giving a layman.
Yeah, this is all for general readers, for, general audiences, these papers. So, yeah, for lay people, yeah. So, but remember, the topic, the effects of depression in relation to this person, Junior, do we have an idea who this person is or what their situation is? Or what kind of depression, or what, aspects of this depression that they're manifesting?
Did he get an F? Did his girl leave him? Did someone die? Nothing.
Right, there's no narrowed focus on this, or working focus, right? So it's very important, this is part of the drafting process. Even in the drafting process, there should be some kind of working focus, okay? This is kind of all over the place, because this person is still working out what they want to write about, okay? So this is totally valid as, a pre-write and kind of a thought gathering, but actually the assignment for that pre-write had happened before this. So by the time this was due, they should have had a little bit more information going, right? So I want you to be aware of the stages that you operate in. The stages that you operate in will also inform things like what kind of program or software will be useful for you, compiling this research notebook, okay? So, so we're not gonna read all the way through the next one, but just as a comparison or a contrast, you see how this one is already different?
Yeah.
Immigrant unemployment and frustration, the toll on a family's American dream, and drown. Why is this different? Is this conveying more specific, useful information? Why? What components do we have, even just in the title?
First of all, it tells you the book that it came from, or the story that it came from. So,
Mhm.
so like with Junior, you don't know who Junior
Right.
is, but here you already know what
Mhm.
you're dealing with.
Mhm. Right, it's like you're getting a little bit more bang for the buck with this one, right?
Yeah.
This first sentence, the topic for my research paper will be how unemployment among Latino immigrants and no hope for a better life are important factors to why Ramon, the father character in their short story collection Drown, participates in questionable work and personal activities that have a negative effect on his wife and children. That's one sentence, but there's a lot of information in that sentence, right? And this is a proposal, so this is not, you don't have to start analyzing it right now, right? But we have something to sink our teeth into, okay? So, keep that in mind. I know that you guys are drafting these recommendations now, okay? But I want you to keep in mind this idea of useful information. So you've already verbally conveyed that. Now it's a matter of putting it into some kind of structure. Okay, so how is the recommendation similar to a proposal? A proposal is trying to get an audience to buy into this idea that you have and this argument, this position that you have. Recommendation is sort of the same thing. You're trying to get your audience to share your enthusiasm for something and really consider this particular thing that you're recommending. It's not that dissimilar, okay? So keep that in mind, beginning, middle, and end. So in the beginning, you're going to probably introduce the range of these programs that you're gonna be working with. The middle is where you really start to break down, and your recommendation will emerge there, and the why you're recommending it. And then the conclusion is the, considering all this, or therefore, this is why this is the best option, okay? So I want you to actually now compile all this information to a written recommendation. Here's the limit, though. It should be no more than a page. So it's going to be long abstract length, because you can fit about, 500 words on a page, and that's about the max of an abstract. So this is not an abstract, it's a recommendation, but it's a short recommendation, okay? So you really want to get at the meat of this, okay? Any questions?
How do you want me to approach it? Like I'm an advertiser? I'm just a student, Stevie student talking to another student?
Yes, I want you to, I want you to do it professionally, in the sense that you're a graduate student, you've done this research, and you want to make this recommendation to fellow graduate students. Basically what happened just a few minutes ago, you were talking to graduate students, right? So you know what the needs of graduate students are, because you're one yourself. Your audience is fellow graduate students. So you want to keep in mind that, okay, this is my program, I'm not in literature, but this program might be useful for people in literature. However, overall, I think this is the one that's the best for these reasons. So again, just to go over while you're beginning this, beginning, middle, and end. Introduction, body, conclusion. Introduction, it does what it says. It introduces you to the programs that you're working with and gives a brief description, right? But introduction also kind of concludes with what your position is. So something like, of all these, I recommend blah, 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 or we will find that blah, blah, blah is the best one because of this reason.
You said you want the introduction, the recommendation also?
You can,
Or the
I mean,
conclusion?
you should, because the introduction really should contain your thesis.
Thesis, okay.
Thesis, position, argument, main idea, there's a lot of different words for it, right? Because what happens if an introduction doesn't contain that? Even if you're writing a graduate level paper and it's a long paper, there is an introduction. That introduction is not just like summary, you have to contain your position within that, or else why are people bothering to read this, right? So keep that in mind. The purpose of an academic paper is to convey useful information. It's not to regurgitate information unless the assignment specifically asks for it, but that's pretty rare that you get an assignment like that. It's to convey useful information. It's also at this point while you're in training to test to see if you are becoming not just knowledgeable in your field, but have an emerging sense of credibility or authority, so that you can evaluate and analyze this information, not just like take it in, right? Okay. Do you have a question?
No, well, yeah, I was questioning in my mind what I was going to do,
Yeah. So, and keep in mind too, the way you are going to organize this. Are you someone that's just going to start writing right off the bat? Are you someone that needs to outline first? However your methodology is, I want you to actually do it. Do it as this was an actual paper that you were writing for something. That'll give me a better sense as I'm looking over your shoulder about what your pattern is. Again, this is one of the advantages of having a small group, that you can get more individualized attention. Any questions before we start? So I think we're going to take this right on up through to the lunch break at 12:30.